Friends, it is 2:35 Eastern Time. I am in New York City and I'm going to go live just for a little while, just so you guys can keep me company. It's lunchtime hours, I guess. I'm home by myself because my daughter is at school and my husband is at work. And if you caught the live last night, I was sharing that there's a lot going on in my family situation. Just very concerned about my mom because she's in hospital and my mind is just racing. And so I don't want to be by myself. So I'm going live so you guys could keep me company. I haven't been reading the last week or so. I just have not longer. Maybe the last 2 weeks, I haven't been able to focus on a book, and I need to start finishing some things because one of the things that I'm doing is I'm a judge for the BookTube Prize. And if you are familiar, the BookTube Prize is the prize where bookish creators here on YouTube and other social media platforms, we get a chance to weigh in on what we think the best book that was published last year is. So the BookTube Prize starts in February and there are 4 rounds: octafinals, quarterfinals, semifinals, and the finals. Each round lasts for 2 months, and when you're a judge, you get assigned 6 books to read and rank. So we are now up to the final round, and I should go get my reading journal. I still have about 3 books left to read, and the round wraps up at the end of September. And I haven't read anything in almost 2 weeks or longer. So I need to start finishing some things. The book that I'm trying to get back to is not a book for the BookTube Prize. It's just a book that the publisher had said sent me, and I started reading. And I was really interested in reading it because I feel like it's something I could relate to in a little bit. The main character in here is an influencer in the YouTube industry. YouTube, I don't think they mention, up to where I was, I don't think they mention what platform, although some of the creators on here, I think they're more like TikTok based. But it's just really interesting to see how other people, fictional characters, produce content. So on the live last night, did I mention I went live last night? So if you haven't watched it, I think it's saved to my feed, so you can watch it later. I was talking about how different it is being a documentarian versus a content creator. And when I first came onto YouTube, I think the platform was more about people documenting their lives. People would come on and make videos. I remember, some really grainy videos from the bedroom where you'd show your bookish content I'm talking about specifically, where you just like sit down and make these kind of stream of consciousness, rambling videos, unedited videos, where you shared what you were thinking as it relates to what you were reading, wrap ups, hauls, that kind of thing, but documenting your own experience. And I think now a lot of the platforms are dominated by people who are content creators. So they make a lot of joke videos, a lot of POV style imagination videos where imagine I'm in this situation, how would I handle it? And so as I have moved from YouTube to other platforms and create short form content, I also do a lot of that. But I don't want to lose what I used to do and what I still want to do on YouTube, which is share my reading, share how I relate to the books that I am reading. So I wanted to read this book and tell you about it. So the title is If You're Seeing This, It's Meant for You. If You're Seeing This, It's Meant for You by Lee Stein. The author's note in the back says, Lee Stein makes fun of what the internet is doing to us. She is the author of 6 books, including the critically acclaimed satirical novel Self-Care. I haven't read anything else from this author, but if you have, you may have an idea of like her writing, that kind of thing. So There are also some discussion questions in the back, like reading group questions. And the first one I'm going to share with you, it says, if you're seeing this, it's meant for you, is a 21st century Gothic novel that includes Easter egg references to classics such as Jane Eyre, Wuthering Heights, The Yellow Wallpaper, and Rebecca. All of those are books that I have read, and I could definitely get that feel just from the part of it that I have read so far. So, what are some Gothic tropes or familiar characters that you found while you were reading this? And in what ways does the author subvert expectations of a Gothic novel? So, it's Gothic because the characters are all, or for the most part, they have volunteered. They volunteered to go into this house and live in very close quarters and use the content that they generate from those interactions to build their platforms. And I find that to be really interesting because it reminds us of a lot of, reality TV situations. If you watch The Bachelor, if you watch Survivor, Big Brother, that kind of thing, then those situations will be familiar to you. But I never really thought about it in terms of content creation. Like, I never thought about people specifically going into these situations just so they could create content. And it's very interesting to me to think about because, like I said, I think this is more of where we are now with social media or social media platforms, where we create content, we create these situations, situations that our viewers probably would not find themselves in normal circumstances, and they get to live vicariously through our experiences, as created as they may be. So I am really wanting to get back into the story, but it's been hard for the past couple of weeks to immerse myself in a fictional world when there is so much in my real world that I'm thinking about. And generally that's generally that's why I love novels, but this time it's just so difficult because it is a situation that is probably the most emotionally charged that I have been in, where I'm concerned about my mom. So I am going to just raise you guys up a little bit because I feel like I'm not quite the right angle. Is that better? I think so. Hi. Hi. We see each other from a slightly different angle, and that is good for me. So leave in the comments. Hi, Autumn Rider 04. Hi to you. Let me know in the comments what you're reading. Thank you so much, Fatima. Thank you so much for your prayers. All prayers, good wishes, thoughts, encouragement are all very much appreciated. Thank you so much. Yeah. What's really weighing on me, probably most pressing, is that I'm far away from my mom. My mom still lives in Jamaica. Most of my family still lives in Jamaica. And, I'm not able to be there physically with her. I'd like to be able to go and, hold her hand and just help physically. But I haven't been able to do that yet. Still trying to work out how we're going to manage that. But updates on that when I have them. So thank you so much for being here. Let me know in the comments what you've been reading. So should we do like a reading sprint? I'm only going to be on here for about 30 minutes. 30 more minutes. It's been about 9 minutes thus far. Oh, Autumn Rider is currently reading The Woman in the Window by A.J. Finn. So when I tell you I have all the books, I mean I have all the books. This was a book of the month book. So I got it when it was a brand new release. I've never read it. And it's not because I'm not interested in it, because I was interested enough to purchase this book full price from Book of the Month. But I just never picked it up. And it's just been right there. Blow the dust off. So Autumn. Autumn, you'll have to tell me how you're liking it. Would love to hear your thoughts. I have heard mixed things, not just about the book, but more so about the author. I remember being interested because it was set in New York City about a reclusive character, and that's always interesting for me to read about because there are times when I feel like I'm a reclusive character, especially when I'm home during the days my family is away. But then all the people come home in the evening, and I'm not such a recluse anymore. Please tell me how you're liking the book. Fatima is reading Kill for Me, Kill for You by Steve Kavanaugh. So I was saying last night on the live that I love having bookish conversations, and that even if I haven't read a book, I usually feel like I could reference a book based on what I have heard about it. But I can't say that I know this book. Kill for Me, Kill for You. Is that a new release? I'm gonna look it up. Steve Kavanaugh. Let's see what Kill for Me, Kill for You. Oh, it is not a new release. It is 2 years old. It was published in July 2023. Razor sharp and Hitchcock inspired psychological thriller. Okay. So please give us thoughts. Give us one word responses or short responses or long responses if you feel like typing a long response. I'd love that too. But yeah, tell us what you think about Kill for Me, Kill for You and The Woman in the Window. I haven't read either of them, so definitely interested to hear what you think. I'm always looking to get book recommendations. Not that I have a lot of time to pick up anything new. Like I said, I have book commitments and reading commitments that I need to honor. But I'm always looking for the next best thing. That's just how it is around here. I have a lot of books that have been sent to me from publishers so that I can read and review them. And I'm kind of focusing on that, which is, like I said, the reason that I want to pick this one back up and finish it pretty soon. So I started, and I just made a TikTok about where I am in the book. I just passed page 60. So I think we're going to do a little reading sprint and see how much of this book I can finish reading today. And maybe you could read with me. Let me know if you are in a situation where you can read, and we'll do a 15-minute sprint in like 1 minute, 2 minutes. At 2:50, it's 2:48 right now. At 2:50, we'll start a reading sprint and we'll read for 15, 20 minutes. So, other things that we talked about in the live last night was tracking. So I still use Goodreads. I have never used Storygraph. I know about it. I've heard all the positive things about Storygraph. I just haven't gotten there yet. Sometimes I'm a little slow on the uptick when a new platform comes, especially if I've just learned how to use the previous one. I'm a little hesitant to start something new. So I know that a lot of you are probably on Storygraph. A lot of people have migrated their reading tracking to Storygraph. I still use Goodreads, and even more so, I track my books physically myself 2 ways. I have a reading journal, which I have a new physical reading journal every year. So as to not have to haul around books from different years, I also have my reading concentrated in one place in an online tracker. So I use a Google spreadsheet, Excel spreadsheet on Google Docs. So I have access to all of my reading over the years that I have been tracking. And so I'm going to show you what my spreadsheet looks like. My spreadsheet looks a little like this. And so these are the books that I have been reading thus far this year. I think I've finished about 70 books so far this year. And I track the information that's relevant to me right now. So every year I add or subtract something from my spreadsheet just so that I can keep track of the things that are meaningful to me in my reading right now to meet my goals that I'm tracking for this year, and to be able to, have a record of what I'm reading that I can share, that I can look back on. So after the reading sprint, hopefully you will stay for the reading sprint. And after the reading, so we're going to start about now, and we're going to read for about 15-20 minutes. And then we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit about tracking or reading. So if you have questions, leave them in the chat. But we're going to start a reading sprint. I don't know how to... So I'm doing this live on my phone, and I'm not sure how to say what I'm doing. So I'll just tell you. Reading, we're going to start reading right now. And we're going to be reading until 3:05. 15-minute timer. Okay. So it's on here. Make it bigger. Hope you're reading with me. I still see it. Okay, about 3 more minutes. 3.5. Wow. Okay, so that was 15 minutes of reading, thereabouts. I read about 20 pages. I started on page 62. I got to 82. Yep, I read exactly 20 pages. So there's some lifestyle choices that are being described in this book that I don't approve of personally. Like the main character, I thought she was a little younger, but she's 30, 39. Forgot that she was, I don't want to say that old. I forgot that she was 39. We first met her when no, we meet her when she's 39, but we jump back into an earlier timeline where she's a teenager or in her early 20s. I think we meet her in her late teens. No, not meet her, but we jump back into that timeline where we see her in her early teens. And I forget that so much time has passed. So I'd forgotten that she was 39. So she's actually 39. And so she's a millennial living in a house with really young people. So the interactions that she's having with them, she is more of a parental figure for people who don't want to be, for people who don't want to be under their parents' control or jurisdiction, which is interesting. So she enters this house, what's called a Deckler house, which is this beautiful Gothic looking architectural spectacle, but has been ruined over the years because of neglect or abandonment or mismanagement or whatever the issue, some environmental issues, whatever the reason, the house is not in its former glory. And of course, that reflects on what is happening with the people, the inhabitants of the house, because they are also, trying to come up, trying to change their circumstances at the same time, while the owner of the house is trying to use these residents to make money to fix the house. So everybody is trying to capitalize and commercialize their interest in everybody else. And it's really interesting, that whole premise, that whole dynamic. But some of the lengths that they're willing to go to for commercial gain is unseemly in this fictional narrative. But like I said, I've seen a lot of the videos where that this kind of thing actually happens. What was really striking to me is that prior to starting this book, I did not know that these hype houses were real. And then sometime, like around the time I started the book, I saw there was a New York Times article, I think, about hype houses. And I didn't get a chance to read it because New York Times articles now are hidden behind the paywall, and I'm not a subscriber, but my husband is. Well, my husband is, so he subscribed, I think, on his phone. So it's not a family account. I just need to use his phone and actually go read the article, and I just never got around to it. Haven't gotten around to it so far. Now that I'm talking to you and I'm remembering why I wanted to read the article, I will have to remind myself to read it later when he comes home, and I'll report back. If you've read the New York Times article, I think it's about 2 weeks ago, about hype houses. Let me see, New York Times. Okay. So there have been a couple of articles. I don't see anything that's recent. These articles all date back to the to the 2020s, to 2020, January 2020, May 2020, which is two different worlds, right? January 2020 is prior to COVID. May 2020 is in the height of the pandemic. July 2020, August 2022. These are all maybe coming out of the pandemic and restructuring our new normal. So I'm not sure why. Maybe my phone suggested the article to me because I was searching up this book and hype houses in general. Maybe that's why. But I will have to see if I can read it. I will look it up. Can I read it now? Because this was before. Okay, so no, I could read it. I could read this one on my computer. Okay, I'm gonna have to. Oh, hi. Hi, V. V is my friend. Her channel is My Cozy Little Library. V says she's reading for school. Yeah, hype houses, interesting concept. So it's these so-called collaboration houses. That's what I'm seeing on the article. They're content houses. So all these influencers or people who want to become influencers get together to see how they can increase more attractive or appealing content using each other. And it's fascinating. It's fascinating because it is very different from how we used to think about the internet and documenting our lives being a way to build community. Hype houses use your physical community to appeal to a much larger community. And so if one person goes viral, then they all go viral. So if you guys remember in the early days of BookTube, there was a group of college kids who we tended to think about when we thought about booktubers, or at least that's how I was introduced to them. There were some friends on this college campus, and they all had booktube channels, and they did a lot of collaboration videos where in each video, so if on my video the 2 or 3 or 4 other people would appear in my video, and then we'd all do this like as a circle. And so they all built very huge followings where all their followers were following all of the other creators. What were their names? I remember Jesse. They were all students on this college campus. And I remember when they were about to leave college, one of the creators was talking about like life after college and what she was going to be doing, and it was all very interesting to think about the future of their channels when they weren't all living, kind of on this dorm situation. I don't follow any of them anymore. I don't know if they're still producing content. If you know who I'm talking about, I remember there was also a New York Times article about them, and I think she was credited, one of the young ladies I remember was kind of credited with creating BookTube. It's like, okay, it's a collaboration. We all are contributors to BookTube. I don't know how you would necessarily say one person or one group created it, but that's another story for a different time. So these so-called collaborative houses, now these hype houses, are, I guess, now tradition, where these creators get together and create, I guess, more interesting content because they have each other. And so I'm really liking seeing how it's being represented in here. Our main character, Dana, she is, like I said, she's 39. And a lot of the other creators in the house are much younger. They're in their late teens, early 20s. And just how she relates to them and their parents, because their parents do appear at some point, like the scene that I was just reading at the end of this chapter was about one of the creator. Her name's Piper, and her mother shows up, and it's discussing the young woman Piper's evolution from being like a star of her mother's online presence, because her mother was like a mommy blogger who used her children for content. And I don't say that in a negative way. I mean, just, if you're a mommy blogger, you have to talk about what you do as a mom. So she would use her interactions and her experiences with her children for fodder for her content. And that's fine, because that's how a lot of us navigate parenthood, when we don't have in real life people that we can get advice from or see ourselves mirrored in. We look to these internet sources, and so it's good, it's helpful, I'm saying, when other moms use their children for content, whether for information, for education, for just giving us validation. I do it. I watch the content and I also produce the content, because if you've watched my videos for any period of time, my daughter appears in some of my videos. She loves to be in the videos, and anytime she says she doesn't want to be in the videos anymore, then she won't be in the videos anymore. Like, there are times when something's happening that I'd like to record, because I think it's something that other people could relate to, and I could, it could be a helpful moment. And she says, don't take a picture of this, or don't record this. And I was like, okay, no problem. You decide. Anyway, I say all of that to say, one of the creators in this book grew up on her mother's platform. And now that she is a young adult, she created her own platform. And you could see the mom trying to um, reach back in time, reach across the divide to try to get her daughter to appear again. Because whew, here's the line that the main character, the author in the voice of the main character says, who was Mindy Bliss, who is the mom? Who was Mindy Bliss if she wasn't the mother of Piper? And so that was just really interesting to think about, like when someone becomes like their identity is tied to this thing that they do, how do they regroup when that is not their identity anymore? So if someone is a mommy blogger or a mommy creator, what happens when her children or her child grows up and or doesn't want to participate in that content anymore? Can she reroute and still produce valuable content in a different part of her identity? So a lot of things to think about with this book, and so I'm really enjoying that part of it. But like I said, there are some lifestyle choices in the book that I don't necessarily love. And so, like, I'll give an example. Our 39-year-old is she's vaping, and I don't want to read about someone vaping because from what I have heard, vaping is dangerous, may even be more dangerous than smoking traditional tobacco or cigarettes. So I don't necessarily want to read about someone who, and I feel like the author is like intentionally referring to her vaping. Like, I see her, she's talking to someone and she says she stopped to vape. It's like, do we need that? I don't think we need that. I don't think we need to know that. So in this chapter, there are at least 2 or 3 references to vaping. But I think it's also meant to just show how, I guess, it's meant to show this person's character, what she is, what she's thinking about, what her life is like. She does some things that are kind of harmful. Some of the things that she fixates on, that they are not good. They're not good. But all of that. That's my personal preference. I'm not going to stop reading the book because she's vaping, but I would rather that it wasn't there. So that's just what I was thinking about. So thank you so much for hanging out with me and giving me an opportunity to read 20 pages in this book. If I could come on every time and read 20 pages, I'd be done with the book by the middle of September. I do need to finish this before the middle of September, so I may just need to schedule some more lives. Should we have another reading sprint? Maybe later. I will come back on here later tonight. That's the plan. That's the goal. My plan would be to get on here maybe around 10 o'clock tonight, if you are available to join me, 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And we'll do a couple of reading sprints overnight. I don't think I can do another one right now because I need to go pick up my daughter from school. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for sharing. If you haven't already given the video a thumbs up, I see there are more people here that weren't here earlier. So please like the video if you haven't already. And we'll be on here later for another one. I'm just trying to get back into my YouTube identity. It's been a while. If you weren't here at the beginning, I'll just share. I have been mentally consumed with thinking about and praying for and worrying about my mom because she's been in hospital for a little while. She's been in the hospital now for 2 weeks and a couple of days. And because I'm just thinking about her and not physically able to go see her, she's in another country. Um, it's just like really weighing on me, and so I haven't been able to focus on anything anything long enough to finish anything. I haven't been reading much since I heard that she's been ill. So coming on live with you, coming on here with you is helping me focus. And so if we could come back on and read together, that would definitely help me. I did say that we would talk a little bit more about reading tracking, but I don't know if we have the time. If you stuck around to hear me talk about tracking my reading, I'll give you just a sneak peek of my tracker. It's not anything special, I think. I track the information that's valuable for me. So this is my spreadsheet, and I have a variation of this spreadsheet every year. I use Google Docs now to create my spreadsheet so that I can access it wherever I am, and that's a lot more helpful to me than having my reading journal. I still use a physical reading journal because I like to do the artistic things with my books. But I like having a place where I can just track my reading on my computer. I also use Goodreads. I don't use Storygraph yet. Maybe I will at some point. But I don't want to learn a new software right now. But on my tracker, on my spreadsheet, I track the title of the book, the title, the author, when the book was published, my ranking. I rate using the Goodreads system, so I give a book between 1 and 5 stars. I track the setting of the book, country, if it's international. If it is an American book, I track what state is represented, because those are things that I like to tally at the end of the year, just to see how many countries, how many regions of the world, as well as how many states in the United States of America that I have read from. So aside from that, I also track whether or not the book was originally published in English or it's a translated work. And if it's translated, keeping track of who the translators are, because I used to participate, and will still participate in reading books that come from different parts of the world and that have been translated to English. And because a lot of the books that are translated don't necessarily focus on who the translator is, but we owe the translator that opportunity to be able to read that book, I like to know who the translator is, so I keep track of that. And aside from that, I like to write down the reason that I picked up a book. So I have lots of different reading commitments and reading goals and reading groups that I'm a part of. One of the things that I do on my channel, if you're new to following me, you may not have heard before that I try to promote books by Caribbean authors. So in the summer, in June, we host a readathon, which is usually between 10 days and 2 weeks, where we focus on reading books by Caribbean authors. We try to encourage other people to pick up books by Caribbean authors. So during the year, I also host a book club where every month we choose a different book by a Caribbean author and we read it and discuss it. So if you're new to hearing about all of that, you may want to check out other videos that I have on my channel that talk a little bit about that. So I keep track of the reason that I'm reading the book on my spreadsheet as well, so that at the end of the year, I can tally up how many books I read because of the book club, the Runwright Reads Book Club, how many books I read because of Caribbean Readathon, how many books I read that were gifts from the publishers, how many books I read that I hadn't read before, that I read because of the BookTube prize that I judge, all of those things. And if I'm reading, like I'm buddy reading a book, which one of my buddy read group, or if I just read a book with one other person, who that person was and why we chose that book, that kind of thing. So that's information that is that's valid for me, relevant to me, interesting to me right now. There are other things that I used to keep track of that I don't anymore, just because, you know, my reading taste, my reading interests evolve. I hope I'm growing and becoming a more in tune reader. So some of the things that I used to track when I really first got back into reading, actively reading, and reading a lot, some of the things that I wanted to make sure that I was tracking are things that I now do effortlessly. So I don't necessarily need to track them anymore. And I gave an example, like I used to track whether the author of the book was male or female. I don't track that anymore because I now know that I gravitate towards books by women, even while I still also read books by men or non-binary gender people. So I don't have to track that anymore because I know that I will read a good number of books by women. I know that I will also still read books by men. So I don't need to track. That's data that's no longer important for me to track because I know that that's normal. So just like that, I don't have to track books by Caribbean authors because I know just in my regular interest, I will always seek out books by Caribbean authors. But I still track it because I like to. One of the things that I do in my reading journal is I color in or shade in the countries that I read from throughout the year. And I like to be able to color that in. So I still track that just because I want to have it represented on my spreadsheet, even though I know that it's something that I don't have to track because I do it regularly. So that's just a little bit about my reading tracking. Would love to hear from you guys. Feel free to leave comments on the video. I'm going to leave the video up so you can watch it afterwards. Feel free to leave comments about your own reading process. And, you know, we'll come back on here and talk more about books. Like I said, I will try to get back on here another live tonight, maybe around 10 o'clock. If I'm a few minutes late, it's because, the family is still up. But at 10 o'clock, my daughter should be sleeping and my husband is probably, no, you know what? Tonight is the first night of football season. And the Philadelphia Eagles are playing tonight, and that's my husband's favorite team. So we're still gonna do the live, but it might not be here because here, right, this physical space is close to the TV. So we will still get on live around 10 o'clock, but it may be in a different location. So I will see you then. Thank you so much for spending the time with me today. I really appreciate your company. If you didn't already, give the video a thumbs up and we'll see you in the next live. And of course, like I said, please go peruse my channel, click on some videos. I would love to increase my engagement here. I know I haven't posted a regular video in a while, but I promise I'm working on getting back to it. I just need to get myself in the headspace where I can talk for a little while about books. And I think this is helping. This is definitely helping. So thank you so much for helping me accomplish that today. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Please go peruse my channel. Click on a few of my videos. Just click on them. Put them on in the background and just let them play. Would love to get some engagement on here. And yeah, we'll talk soon. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of the day. And if you're on Instagram or TikTok, check me out over there. I'm Karen_Runwright Reads on both Instagram and TikTok. So would love to see you on the other platforms as well. See you later. Have a great day. Bye. Making a screenshot.